If you were disguised as your 6-year-old self with your adult mind and abilities, what would you do to freak people out? Attempt to buy alcohol in hilarious ways. Walk into a bar with an obviously fake mustache. 3 fingers of Glenlivet. Neat. Too young? That's not what your mother said to me last night, Mr. Bedwetter. I would mastermind a heist. It would be perfect. No one would suspect a child, and you could just play dumb if you were caught. I think, in England anyway, by law you cannot be held responsible for your actions if you are under the age of 10. I hated doing homework and it took me forever. So as a 6-year-old with my knowledge, I would go through a primary education finishing all my schoolwork in 5 minutes and spend the rest of my day being a freaking kid again. Every day. I think you underestimate how much busy work went on throughout primary school. I would just be a kid again because why the heck not? At least with my adult mind I'd be able to appreciate the low stress, no responsibility life. Go to a concert and convince the band I can play their songs on guitar. They'll be like, what at first, but hey, it's a cute little 6-year-old so why not? Then I'd play the song, blow the crowd away, get YouTube fame, a record deal, become a millionaire and start my own band that would go on to perform sellout tours just before my 7th birthday. Failing that I'd just go on COD and tell people their mums are W. Failing that I'd just go on COD and tell people their mums are W. Works best if you're actually owning them constantly. I would walk into my old high school calculus class, walk up to the board, do all the problems, then drop the marker like a mic. Afterwards I would climb out the window. Then realize that years after graduating, you've forgotten everything about calculus and you're too short to climb a window. I would choose just one person to freak out. First of all, preferably, someone I would have constant contact with. Basically, I'll pull the old gaslighting bit. I'll act like a completely normal 6-year-old boy to everyone else. But when I'm alone with that one person, I would act like one of those creepy kids in horror movies like The Children of the Corn or Omen. First, I'd start speaking in a more adult voice. 6-year-olds normally speak using simple words and basic grammar, but I'd slowly let the wisdom of my true age seep out whenever I talk to that person. Of course he'll think it's oddly cute at first, but I'll just keep a straight face if he ever points it out. When other people are around, I'll immediately switch back to kid speak. He might try to tell other people about it, but I'll just act like I didn't know what he was talking about. I'll let things escalate slowly. At first, I'll talk about strange things that won't really make sense. I'll come up with a fictional being, like the scary man. Maybe I'll say things like, don't let the scary man in, or the scary man doesn't like you. If I'm in his house, I'll stare at a corner of his bedroom for long periods of time. If he asks me what I'm looking at, I'll slowly raise my hand and point. That's where the scary man watches you. Occasionally, start singing hello my baby, hello my honey, hello my ragtime girl, and then when other people are near, just go ribbit. 1. Speak German and Latin randomly. 2. Crawl up and down stairs backwards since I've seen the movie. 3. Giddy laughter when people die in action movies. I'd like to add 4. Quote movies I haven't seen yet. Probably something as simple as changing the oil on a car or something, then seeing the reactions of people passing by. Or driving the car, then seeing the reactions of people passing by. I would say nothing out of the ordinary in front of my parents, but every once in a while I would just randomly sit down with a group of adults, listen into their conversation, and then randomly interject with things like, actually, the Hungarian language is one of the only non-Indo-European languages spoken in Europe and thus your point is very incorrect. Then I would fart and walk away. They would then go back to discussing whether or not the Ravens are going to be any good this year. I look like a Children of the Corn kid, so naturally I'd be obligated to try to creep people out as much as possible, even as subtle as staring at someone for an extended period of time, cocking my head to the side ever so slightly and commenting on how delicious their soul smells. I had a completely different comment when I first wrote subtle and forgot to change it. I looked like Dakota Fanning, so I would just stab and gouge the eyes out of dolls and minfuck people accusing them of having split personalities. Stick up for other little kids if they got bullied. I was a timid child, But now I know better. I wasn't planning on getting physically violent or even trying to out-argue a 6-year-old. I just think it can make a huge difference to a kid who's getting picked on if they know there's someone around who at least cares about what's happening to them. I wouldn't speak for a month. I would wait until my parents and the doctors were freaking out, and then one day when my parents woke up I will have written complex mathematical equations all over the kitchen walls in permanent marker and announce, in 2008 they'll elect a black president. Then I'd pretend to pass out. Fine, I'm changing it to 2008. I would be very tempted to endure all the drudgery of school again just to be able to do this. I would love to be a public school secret shopper, sit through my entire elementary, middle, and high school education, knowing when and why I should contact the FFRF, when and why I should report instructors to the principal for various misfeasance and malfeasance in teaching, so on and so forth. My main objective would just to be to figure out what's wrong with the school system from the inside out using a bitter teacher's brain in a 6-year-old body. Instead of having the handwriting of a 6-year-old, I would have the handwriting of an 8-year-old. Yes, I know of the spelling errors. However, I choose to leave them here to make all the OCD people cringe. My handwriting was better when I was 6 than it is now. Probably convince everyone I'm a genius, go take a ton of college courses really early, and become an actual genius as my developing brain absorbs all the new information. Okay everybody, if you are about to comment with "but you're already not a genius," if you could be one you would be "OMG you're so dumb," or "but I tease your brain now not a new one, you're just disguised 111 that's great, you're a really original thinker." Clearly no one has thought of this comment before and I absolutely didn't bother considering any of it while typing my original comment. Pretend I hear voices, and they tell me things that number 6-year-old should know. I'm pretty sure I could have a major religion built around me before too long. Get very existential when you get punished. Actually, Mrs. So-and-so, there is no evidence to support the idea that sugar makes children hyper, and since the entire premise on which you've constructed your rules is based on a myth, your rules are inherently unjust. To adhere to them would be to support the tyranny of ignorance. I will do no such thing. Give me my freaking Smarties back. Just because you'd be right doesn't mean you'll get your Smarties back. Be sarcastic and subtly vicious to authority figures. No one thinks they can be outsmarted by a kid, but I'd like to insult them to their face. You'd be all set to do this, then remember that you're not that witty or clever. I wouldn't. This is my number one impossible fantasy and I've thought it out constantly. I would simply defend myself against the verbal bulls of the elementary principals and teachers I had to deal with. I would of course get top grades throughout the years growing up into high school and wouldn't skip any grades. I'd keep my valuables more secure to save them for later life and keep a low profile outside my outstanding school record and behavior. Life would be awesome. But I'm not a genius now and I wouldn't really grow into a genius after I grew up again. I would just be a lot more prepared for adulthood. This answer is so chill I think I got frostbites. Helicopter my dong at the pool and act confused when I get in trouble. On a side note, I just realized I'm a pervert. Probably go crazy from having an adult mind and not being allowed to be an adult. I'd be subject to my parents' authority, not be allowed to go out on my own or even use the internet on my own. I'd have to slog through school board as all heck, or if put in an advanced grade deal with being freakishly young for a high school or college student. Hopefully it would be college. As an anomaly, I'd likely be subject to the constant poking and prodding of psychologists. Talk about world politics, both current and past, and discuss 9/11 conspiracy theories in great detail and to great lengths. I'd also enter a first grade spelling bee and become my nation's greatest speller. I'm kind of afraid that some of those first graders might still outspell me. I would go to the beach or swimming pool and then pull down bikinis while yelling very hard like this daddy and look at a random stranger. Okay, I get it. One does not yell very hard. Dutch people yell hard. Screeuwen hard. The rest of the world yells loud. For the gender-based harassment people, I would walk to a random guy and pull his swimming trunks down while yelling very loud like this, "Mommy," and look at a random stranger. The joke isn't in the pulling down panties part, it's in the looking at the guy part. That is absolutely brilliant. I would go to my school basketball practice and dazzle everyone with what were once the average skills of a 22-year-old. Yeah, except your muscles and bones are not very developed, so you're probably gonna be the average skill of a 6-year-old. I would try to be all cute and nice towards hot chicks with nice racks and ask for hugs while burying my face in their crotch. What? You don't need to be smart to know that works when you're 6. Take it from me. I'd just carry on my life as normal, but as a 6-year-old, I'd offer no explanation as to what has happened to me. My family would ask me what's happened and I'd just say I don't want to talk about it. I'm fine. Please just leave me. I am late for work. Ask teachers questions that imply private experience in a serious and thoughtful way. Can you please give me some advice? I'm suffering from premature ejaculation and I'm insecure that my girlfriend thinks less of me because of it. That's less of an implication and more of an outright statement. So, we're not going back in time. We're just regressing to the physical form of a 6-year-old child. My husband would not be happy. For that matter, neither would I. No more drinking. No driving. No fricking. No adult movies. Can't use a credit card. Can't do my banking. Can't take public transit alone. Can't go anywhere by myself without someone thinking I'm lost kidnap bait. It'd be like being crippled all of a sudden. And since you can't just have a random child appear out of nowhere, he'd have to enroll me in school and pretend I was his. Which would be creepy and icky, and considering I have no papers to prove my identity, probably wouldn't work anyway. At which point my husband be charged with human trafficking and me and my kids would all end up in foster care, while the authorities try to figure out who I am and where I came from. Oh, and he'd likely be investigated for my disappearance, as the natural assumption would be that he'd had me murdered. Bro, this just keeps getting worse for the poor guy. It's nice that most of your thought process on this is centered around your husband. Walk into a college finite course and solve all the problems presented on the board. Then wet myself. Then cry in the corner until someone brought me a Capri Sun. Teacher, use I in a sentence. Me, I is. Teacher, no, that is the wrong usage. Me, I is the 8th letter in the alphabet. I is the square root of -1. Go to a pub quiz and seem to know a ridiculous amount about music and events that happened way before I was born. Also, I'd only need one drink to get absolutely wasted at age 6. Can I get a double vodka and Capri Sun please? 1. Make a list of Jesus, Gandhis, Dalai Lamas, various popes, MLKs, etc. Meaningful quotes. Basically anyone inspiring and who others look up to. 2. Change them up a bit. Maybe combine edit some for originality. 3. Memorize. 4. Preach frequently to those around me. Throw Hitler into there too. Cook a 7-course dinner for parties complete with the useless talents of turning fruits and veggies into random animal shapes. Apple swan. Anyone? Are we gone back in time to when we were 6? I would totally convince my parents to put a bet on the results of elections. What odds do you think Paddy Power would give in 1996 for getting the next 4 US presidents right? Especially when no one would have heard of Barack Obama. Similar to but slightly shorter than the odds that they gave for aliens making first contact at the 2012 Olympic closing ceremony. I would just tell people the same stories I tell them now. Tales of highly irresponsible drunk driving, sea parties, and private endeavors. Hey there little boy, what's your name? You ever blindfold a chick, tie her to a tree and frick her with a knife to her throat just to make her CM harder? I'd remember all the groundbreaking songs, good and bad of the last couple years and write them down as a 6-year-old. 1996. And the world would be in awe of the lyrical little kid writing Bad Romance, This Ain't a Scene and Gangnam Style just to really frick with them. I said nothing about going back in time, you're in disguise. But hey, I was 6 in 1996 too. Happy 23rd year. Talk to the other kids about fricking and freak them all out, and when they grow up they learn that all the knowledge they gleaned from me was all wrong because I know absolutely nothing about it. I wouldn't start smoking and I would do a lot more to make my body in much better shape for when I'm older. Start doing insanity workouts and lifting. Establish better eating habits. Wait, Why can't I do this now? As I grew up, I would kill it with the ladies. Having the perspective and maturity of an adult would make late elementary school and high school a whole new ballgame. I would just start asking innocent questions about private things. Could you imagine what would happen if a 6-year-old asked their teacher about BJs? Yes, social services would be called. Done it. It's not that great. Still spanked for swearing. Dad wouldn't give me money for the stock market. Too short for cool rides. Can't drive again. Assuming the change was temporary and in the present, I would freak people with my massive knowledge of things that almost no 6-year-old knows. Assuming the change was permanent and in the present, I would freak people out pretty much the same way. Assuming the change was temporary and in the past, like when I was actually 6, I would convince people that I was a time traveler and tell them things that would happen in the next couple of days. Assuming the change was permanent and in the past, I would make sure I did things different, like working out often, actually applying myself in school, and using my insider knowledge of the girl I like to win her over. I have this all kinds of thought out. I would let that diddler show me his dong at the Christmas party, then roll on the floor laughing my butt off. I'd point to it and say, "Is that all you got?" Then I'd storm on back to the party laughing hysterically, telling everyone that Father Dino had just showed me his dong and it was smaller than mine. Sell C to my 7th grade big buddy, then snitch on him, lift the coke and spread it out into the kindergartner's sandpit. MMA and wrestling techniques against that douchebag Trenton that used to always throw crayons at the back of my head in 1st grade. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.